Todd is not only a remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do.
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity.
He is an influential entrepreneur and business figure for over 30 years.
I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he's came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life.
Listen, I can't tell you, it's Friday. Listen, I woke up this morning and literally had text messages coming into me, Friday, and I looked at the message, the DM, it's Friday. So I had to give you the Friday. I didn't want to forget. I think a couple of weeks ago, I didn't give you the Friday. Man, it's Friday. So listen, what we've done on this show, what we've done over the last several years now, it's gone live every morning, new content every day. It's the market dominating position of Wired Differently. And I just want you to understand that we have moved the show into a different space. I think that on every Friday, it's nice to know that we're going to have a superstar come on the show and we're going to interview them. And I'm going to work on my interview skills, right? Talk less about me and more about them, right? We got to work on that, right, Todd? Someone said that the other day. I think it was my wife, maybe. But anyways, I just really want to share Wired Differently people in this world. Like, my job is to grow you personally. My job is to grow you spiritually. And my job is to grow you profitably. We can't do it if we don't do all three of these things together. And one of my quotes that I think about often when I think about this guest right here, Steve Mellor, one of the most amazing men. I'm literally not throwing smoke. I did a podcast with him. Amazing individuals. And he even got better as I started studying him for this show, which I didn't think could get any better. Is that I want to grow you personally, spiritually, and profitably all together as a functional coach. And here's another coach out there doing similar things, doing the same things in regards, and a little younger, same barber, same sexy barber. You're going to love this guy, Steve Mellor. I'm going to bring him on in about 30 seconds. Listen, this guy, by the age of 38, has accomplished so much. Olympic gold medal coach, NCAA medal winner in his own rights, a swimming protege from the age of 12 to 13, an amazing father who moved him through this, came in from England by himself on his own, cut his own teeth, got everything all set, and then all of a sudden everything was ripped away from him. He had to go all the way back to England. Right when he was feeling at home, right when you feel like you're getting your mojo moving, right when you think things are going well in your company, your life, your time, your whatever. Have you ever been there, right? And it's just taken all away. It literally matters of seconds. This man literally had to sell everything he owned at the age of, I don't know, he'll probably tell you 23, 24, from the parking lot of a college coach, mentor, so that he could get back home to reconstruct a life he had no plan B for. Think about that. So we've all had our lives ripped from us. We all need people to lift us up. And this man, Stephen Mellor, is going to take us through his life. He's going to give us a quick peek into that. And then we're going to talk about how he came back to shock the world, right? Shock the self, shock the world, shock the self, shock the world. No, that's what we talk about. That's what we are. That's what we are. I know it's Friday, and I don't know why the juice is flowing so heavy today, but it's probably because I got this man right here on the stage, Steve Mellor. How are you, Steve? I hope I did a good job.
Brother.
I was reading on you all night, all morning, and I sent you some of my notes, right? So you know why I do that, because I want you to see the commitment level and love I have for your story, brother.
I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate being here. Good morning to you. Good morning to you listeners. The energy that you all get to experience, courtesy of Todd, is... Consider yourselves blessed. You choose to have this energy in your life, and trust me when I tell you this, you chose correctly. So I appreciate being here, brother.
Well, we got to spar. Let's see, what were we almost a month ago, we did a podcast on your show. It was phenomenal. You came prepared. You know, you've been on several podcasts, right?
Yeah.
One of the first podcasts I ever jumped on, this guy, he didn't know my name. He didn't know that I wrote books. He had a tank top on, right? Shocked the world to me. I was like, man, I'm kind of a big deal. Have you not Googled me or anything, right? But evidently, I had inflated self-worth in that regard. But the point of the matter was, I'm like, I will never do that. I will never do that. So let's talk about you. We got a half hour here, but this is my show. We can run as long as we want, but we want to keep things moving where they are. Steve, you wrote a book called Shock the World, correct?
Correct.
And I prepped you with my notes. Like, so if you read them, these are all the things that are fair game for me, right? So that's kind of how I do it. I just give you all a warning. Shout out to the last three guests. They're like, wow, all these notes, but let's just pick one because like I might hit you from the side, the right, the top, the left. But I want to start off with I want you to take your story, if you will, but I want you to weave it into why you would consider yourself wired differently.
Yeah.
What is it that makes you wired different?
Yeah. It's what's so funny is that I obviously did my research on you before I had you on my podcast, and this whole term wired differently, the more I read about you, the more I got to know the business, the more I just gravitated towards this message and realized how much I saw myself in this notion of being wired differently. And it goes back to something we were talking about right before we get started here, that element of authenticity, like how you show up each and every day. Can you step into a version of yourself that is as authentic as possible? Because in doing so, you immediately commit to being wired differently, because not the majority of people aren't doing that. The majority of people aren't stepping into their truest self. They're stepping into a version of self that they think they need to form to. And that ability and that desire to step into authenticity immediately puts you in the minority of being wired differently. But for me, the one thing that always comes to mind is I have an addiction in life, and it is that of realizing potential in other people. I am addicted to realizing potential in other people. When I see it, you cannot get me away from it. And I just gravitate towards it in a way that has probably got me in a little bit of trouble at times over the years. Like that element of loyalty that can sometimes come to someone or to something because you see such potential, and the last thing you want to see is it go to waste. And so for me, I've had to get better at that over the years of just being like, you know what, sometimes they don't want the support that's required to realize their potential, and I can live with that, and I can accept that, and I can pray on that, and I can just give myself some grace to that. But the addiction never goes away. When I see the potential for growth, I gravitate and run towards it. And that is 100% why I am so wired differently to so many.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit something I wasn't expecting, and I wrote this: build people. And your gift, your calling, what you're telling me is your wired differentiality is that you want to build people. You see potential in people, and you're going to go for it. You're going to pull them along. You're going to make it happen. Now, listen, that's perfect because it leads us right into one of your most wired differently accomplishments. And I think that people need to understand, and I'm going to do the best I can here, is that you are a badass swimmer. Like isn't like you were no joke, right? Or you're in England, you're a little kid, you're swimming, you got a dad. He's like, get in the pool. Don't get out of the pool until you almost can't breathe. Well, I don't know what a father says to a swimmer. What's your father say when you want to get out of the pool too soon? What's he say to you?
You're not done. You're not done. It's not that simple.
Did he ever just like push you back in?
Right. Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny because I had a great father. I have still, he's 82. He's changing, things are really changing, and I don't want to go down that road. But I remember him, basically making me swim as a little boy and throwing me in the lake. And about 5 years ago, I had my grandson here. I live on a beautiful ocean. I'm looking at it right now, and there's this problematic cliff wall. And if you go over the cliff, you could arguably drown. And if you can't get to the wall, the oysters, scallops on the side of the wall will slice you to death because it's just so I had thought, oh, what if my grandson fell in or something? So I took him out on the boat, taught him how to swim, and I just threw his butt off the boat and someone put it on Facebook and it's like, you're awful. No, I'm not awful. The kid knows how to swim, right? It takes fathers, it takes mentors, it takes people like yourself, right, to see potential and to pour into people.
Mhm.
So quickly, you go from this prodigy, you become the youngest freshman to ever swim in the history of sport. I don't know. Remember, you were picking on yourself in one of these interviews I read. You joked that you were like a 20-year-old freshman because you were working so hard to get from the you call it the UK? You call it
Yep.
the UK to here. You leave on your own. You come to North Carolina State, right?
That's right. That's right.
How am I doing, bro? All
You're
right.
doing
So
good.
you're here on your own, 20 years old. Doesn't matter. You're still out of your comfort zone, but you make it your own world.
Yeah.
Number one, shock to self. Go ahead.
Yeah. And that was a big theme around the age of sort of 15, 16, is that I think my parents realized quite quickly this kid's just going to go do what he wants to do in a good way, not in a disrespectful way or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
more of, I see opportunity, I see potential in myself, and one way or another, I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen. And it was around that sort of time of 15, 16, I had two massive commitments in life. One was swimming, one was sport. And then the other was actually performing. It was the arts. I was on stages. I would do, I'd be in theater and all this kind of stuff, and really came to this crossroads around 18 years old where you talk about shock to self. It was like, well, I see these two things that I'm very capable of doing, and they cannot coexist, at least successfully. If you want to be successful at one of them, you're going to have to give up the other. You really can't do both at this point in life. And so for me, I went with the sports side of things. And we'll probably circle back around later how I ended up fulfilling some of that performance part of me too. But the fact of the matter was that I really said, and I'm probably going to use a number of swimming terms, puns, sorry, as we go through this, but I dove in straight away at the age of 18, 19 and said, I'm leaving home. I'm going all in on myself. I relocated in the UK to somewhere where I could swim full time and work part time, and put myself in a position where I could start to really realize my potential. Because as we've talked about off air, my belief was, the way I convinced myself to get the best out of myself is I was working with a third of the talent of the best of what they do. And for me to realize myself, my potential, I was therefore going to have to work 3 times harder than the guy next to me. And it's the only way I could process my power, my insights, my inspiration, my motivation each and every day. For me to show up and give my all, I had to assume that I was working with a third of the guy next to me, which meant I would be outworking them 3 times more. And it worked. It worked. I became a top 50 in the world swimmer. I ended up in the US on a full scholarship. I competed at the NCAA. I competed for medals and championships in the ACC championships. And for me, now that I'm 15, 16 years removed from that swimming career, and I have a wife, bless her heart, who's very good at speaking on my behalf about my accomplishments, because I don't do so good with that, especially in my past life as a swimmer. I'm able to look back now and say, like, how about you don't make it about the result? How about you just focus a little bit more on, dude, how did you get there? Like, how did you actually get there? And I have a huge gratitude and appreciation for that at this point in life, knowing that as a father now, looking 5, 10 years ahead for my children, what do I want that work ethic to look like in pursuit of whatever it is they're going to go and eventually pursue? And so I'm very proud of that approach that I took, the process that I committed to, and the results that came from it. Almost at this point, it's like they were all well and good, but that gratitude I have for just simply trusting my instincts and going all in, that's what I really remember most.
All in. For all of you that are just jumping on right now, this is Steve Mellor. He is an amazing human being. He's an accomplished collegiate swimmer. He is an executive coach, and we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the show for sure. But I want you to understand the speed here. This man is a brilliant, inspiring coach. He's doing things. He's got a story to tell, and we're kind of moving through his childhood. His father had to give him. I had to laugh at this because my father did the same thing to me, but it wasn't about soccer. But I know your father had to give you some bad news at some point when you were a little kid. Well, can you share that with me, that your father had to break it down?
Yeah, it's a
give
story.
you, like, the worst news your father could ever tell a kid. But listen, we didn't rehearse this, right? We didn't rehearse this. Swear,
No, we did not.
like, so you got to understand, a little boy's a swimmer, he's an athlete, he's a thespian, he's an actor. He's if they had Facebook back then, he'd been all over it, right? But his father has to tell him there's one something you're just not going to excel in. How'd your father break the news to you? How did you?
Man, what's so funny is that you'll know this going into the speaking world. Like, you don't know what stories are going to hit until you tell them. And this story lands every single time because I think people relate to it every single time. And, just a quick way of telling it. I'm about 11, 12 years old. I'm playing every sport under the sun, but soccer, as we call football in the UK, is all I care about. It's all I live for. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm getting better. I'm playing for some regional teams. I'm even having a few tryouts with different academies and things like that. And then lo and behold, one fateful night, my dad walks in, asks me to turn the TV off and says, "Son, listen, I got something I got to tell you." And here I am. I'm ready for the big, like.
How old are you?
I'm 12 years old, and I'm like, here comes the news. Is this about, is it something about my grandparents? Is it something about the house? Are we about to be evicted? Like, that's the tone that he's coming to me with. That's the energy in the room. And he sits me down and says, "Steve, the soccer thing, it isn't for you. It isn't for you. This is not going to be your sport." And it was as if that couch just swallowed me whole in that moment. Like, like life itself was no longer worth living. But my favorite part of the story, and I will tell you this, you've already heard about where I went with my swimming and what I was able to accomplish. It was in that moment, bless his heart, my dad was able to soften the blow and just simply say, "Hey, the swimming thing, there's something there. There's something there that you have to start recognizing and appreciating. And I see something in you when you're doing it that I don't really see in many others around you." In other words, I was standing out. I was standing out in that world, and I was just part of the crowd in the soccer world. But in my mind, while I'm playing soccer, I'm like, "Oh, I'm it. I'm the guy. I'm him." And I was never, and thank goodness he told me that, because he was right. He was right.
Well, I didn't know the breadth of that story. So I was in my research. I heard it was a sleight of hand. Like I chose swimming at some point because my father had told me that I wasn't any good at soccer. That is literally all I heard. But the story is, it's a phenomenal story, because I think it's just this idea. And what did you not really realize as a young man? What your father was doing was shaping you. But here's the no look past what a great father does. And I know you have, what, a 5-year-old?
I have a 4.5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. Yeah.
Okay. So I hope they run in, and I hope they
could happen at any point. Could happen.
I hope they do an ambush on you, full permission, live TV, whatever. But here's what happens as a father and a leader. And obviously I shared my age with you. I'm going to be 59 quickly, which is like 1 year off of 60. And you start to think, like, what the heck? What did I learn? What am I passing back? And so not only my learning years have kind of passed me up, but my teaching, influential, molding years of my children have passed me up. And, you start to get profits from that stuff, and you don't realize if you did a good enough job or not. And now, before you know it, you're raising grandchildren, and you're like, okay, I got to hone in on that one, because that one landed, like you said, right? And then, all of a sudden you're raising a father who's 82, and it's just like this whole. I digress. But here's what happens when your father sits you down like that. Not that you don't know this, but I want to give you the father no look. It's not that he took you from soccer or a dream crusher to a dream maker and a career maker and an amazing man. But what he did was give you probably your first real lesson in coaching other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't know what was happening to you then. You may not even know until now that was probably the first implementation or a seed that's like shocked my world. Like, it's probably one of the first shocks of your world. And you probably write about it. Forgive me, I haven't had time to read the whole book. I really haven't read any of them. I'm not going to be one of those guys. I read the outline. I'm going to get to it. By the end of the show, hopefully you're going to at least touch on the 9 shocks.
Yeah.
We're going to teach you. I want you to buy the book, but I really want you to understand the concept. It's brilliant. But here's probably the number. Is it your number? I think it's the number 1 shock. Can you think about it out there? All you listeners out there right now, what was your first shock? What rattled your cage when you were a little boy or a little girl? I think you all have that story, and I think you should write it down right now. If you have something to write down, pull up your iPhone, pull up whatever you got. This is a coaching moment from Steve. and I'll take a little credit with him because I'd love to hang out with this guy. I'd love to be known, and I'd like my name in the same damn sentence with this guy, right? So I want you to write, what is that first shock? Steve's first shock was his dad told him wasn't good enough. He probably didn't even hear soccer. Probably heard I wasn't good enough.
Mhm.
Don't know. But it shaped you into who you are today. And so the last half of the show, Steve, I really want to move it, because this is what your father did for you. He saw what was good in you. And the first thing you said when you jumped on this show, Steve, was you like to build people. You like to experience people. You like to see talent. You like to pull talent. You need to create. You need to build. I'm building a massive. Everybody's been following me this week, seeing this massive tiki head I'm building. Right? I show them every day. I'll show you guys Monday. The thing's almost done. But I'm building. You're building, right? And so your father's building. So you have this great career, North Carolina. You go over to LSU because you don't know what you're going to do with your life, but you fall into coaching. You can't help it. Your dad's been coaching you. You're born a coach. You're born a damn leader, Steve. Can't run from it.
Right.
Take the job, get the job, lose the job because you lose your visa. You got to go all the way back, sell all your crap, come back. Somehow God gets you back over. You get back to LSU. And one of the first people you meet when you start to really hone in at your coaching job, what is that talent? Who's that person that was shocked, that like was your shocking moment as an adult that you knew your career had changed? You're not celebrated as an athlete anymore. I remember being the campus stud on the football team. I remember walking through campus and hi, Todd, going to win, great touchdown, blah, blah, blah. I remember I loved it, man. I loved it. But not the day after college is over and you get in the real world is not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, a guy like you shifts, understands he's got these gifts from his father. Intellectually, he's been built to be the coach, and now he wants to pour into someone else. I set you up, bro. Come on, bring it home.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the setup, and I think for me, what I loved, the part of the collegiate coaching position is the recruiting, and you get to identify talent for a living in many ways.
Wait a minute, you didn't like recruiting minors?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Having to blow smoke up a 15, 16-year-old, whatever, and then
the side joke. No, the side joke is before you could go back to, you don't know I know this about you, but before you could go back to LSU to coach on your visa back in the UK, didn't you have to recruit like coal miners?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not talking about little kids. No,
right. I was just like, well, technically, yes, they are considered minors, but you are exactly right. I love that, Carly. So
save me right here.
I'll save you right now. I'll save you right now. When I went back to the UK, I love that. When I went back to the UK, I try to find whatever the closest thing was to being a collegiate swim coach. And so recruitment was a big part of that. So I went naturally into recruiting. However, it was the complete opposite of what you would consider a collegiate swimmer. It was people working in the mining industry. I was recruiting people in the mining industry. So I had no passion, no care, whatever it is in the world. But I was recruiting and I was trying to convince myself that I was doing something that I had experience in. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. And, and anyway, the sort of 18 months that came after that realization of like, you're doing the wrong career, the wrong thing, you're doing life wrong, started to really get back on a path of like, where do you need to be? What kind of influence do you need to be having? Started even working as a swim teacher, not as a swim coach, like just getting with kids and just getting back to my roots, getting back to my passions of giving into people, serving people. At first, honestly, not even caring about the money I was making off the back of it, just getting realigned with my best self. And lo and behold, the opportunity to come back to LSU came up. And as I start recruiting, one thing I start to notice is that when you recruit a kid that wants something that nobody else through the recruiting process believes they're capable of achieving, you've got yourself a little winner right there, because they come in with this little thing that I call today in the coaching world, this little chip on their shoulder that you can coach. And that whenever you need to as a coach, you can just walk right up to them, put that chip back on the shoulder and say, you remember this thing as we went through the recruiting process. Remember this thing that we talked about how certain people maybe didn't see in you what you saw in yourself. Well, listen, I'm here to remind you that not only do I see it in you, but it's more important that you see it in yourself. And lo and behold, I found this kid called Brooks Curry out of Atlanta, Georgia. And little did I know at the time just how good he could be, how quickly he could be, but I knew he could get to the top of the sport, and recruited him into LSU. Didn't tell a soul about him. Didn't want anybody to know about him until he signed on that dotted line and said, I'm coming to
Yeah,
LSU.
weren't you like the only one recruiting this guy?
Literally, and again, and based on the information, rightly so, because he wasn't where you would necessarily consider an SEC swimmer to be. But again, through the recruiting process, I watched him enough and I said, there's something here that people are missing. There's untapped potential here that people are missing that I just see in droves. And I cannot understand why, for the life of me, nobody else sees it. And so lo and behold, brought him in, and I can get to the end of the story, but the rest is kind of history.
Well, tell us what happened. I mean, I think it's important because I really want to build the close around this idea of you being a people builder. And when you say untapped potential, I mean, I think as a business coach, listen, I think we need to change your name. I don't like executive coach.
Me neither.
You are a performance dude. You are like lightning in a bottle. You're like teaching people to become bigger, faster, stronger. You're taking people from where they were to what they want to be. You're like discovering gold. You got to do better than that. What do you think we could do with that?
Well, no, I'm with you, brother, and we've talked about it off air. Like, high performance is what I know. You know, everything about my brand is optimal performance, optimal self, and
I mean, you've
part of that is high performance. And for me, I'm a high performance coach. You know, this term executive coach is something that gets used within an industry from time to time. I've gravitated towards it to sort of establish myself within the coaching world with a specific from a specific perspective. But what I'm coming to find is slowly, the more I work with people, the reason why people want to work with me is because I see in them the same thing that I saw back then with Brooks Curry. I see a version of themselves that they are unable to see. And I am adamant about them doing the work behind what's required to realize this version of themselves. And to support the story, Brooks came into my office like a lot of kids had done over the years when he first arrived on campus and said, I want to be an Olympian. You know, he's an American too. That just happens to be by far the most difficult team to become an Olympian when it comes to the sport of swimming. And I told him, I was like, brother, I've lost count of the amount of times people in that seat have looked at me and shared similar sentiments and not been true to their word. And I said, you do realize that you telling me does not put the accountability for this achievement on my shoulders. It puts the accountability on your shoulders. I'm here to facilitate that goal, but that you are committing to the goal right now. And I want you to tell me why you think you are capable of doing it. And I joke with audiences now when I speak on this. His answer wasn't great, but he had an answer prepared. He'd already given it some thought. He wasn't just sitting there and spontaneously saying, like, I think I want to be an Olympian. No. He'd given it real thought. He felt good that this was something he could go and pursue. And from 2019 through what ended up being an extra year because of COVID, through 2021, he went and pursued his Olympic dream. And I facilitated that goal to the best of my ability and put him in the position to be successful. And lo and behold, come June of 2021, we went to Omaha, Nebraska, where the Olympic trials is held every 4 years in the sport of swimming. And the kid went and did it. He placed fourth in the 100 freestyle, which immediately put him on the relay for the American team. And he went one step better, being a part of that American team that brought home the Olympic gold. And in the space of 2 years, a kid went from being unrecruited, unseen, unknown, to being the best in the world at what he did. And to this day, I can't tell the story. Literally, I've told the story so many times. I still can't tell it without getting hair up on my arms. It's just impossible. Yeah.
All right. So I'm just going to tell you what I just learned from that story that I didn't know. So the team won the gold.
Mm-hmm.
He did not win the gold.
Correct.
All right. So I got goosebumps right now. The title of this show was Come With Us. And I just kind of want to close, and I want you to close with me, but I want you to understand that the title of this show is called Come With Us. And I put the title there because I believed that it made a lot of sense. And from what I read and from what I understand, I just wanted you to let you know how God moves in our world and how we do things and why things are the way they are. come with us now. This is the mantra. This is the title of what this master coach did, said, and projected to build a team. Now, when I first heard this story, I remember hearing him going to some 19 teenagers and saying, listen, maybe you're not quite good enough to win the gold. I got to break some news to you, but I got one dude that is. But as a team, this is what I'm getting right now. We're pursuing the gold medal. Brooks Curry is the lead swimmer. Brooks Curry is the guy that could possibly win the gold. He's a special dude. We all see it. We all know it. But here's the deal. We need 12. I don't even know how many swimmers you have on a team. I know nothing about swimming other than I was a triathlete, and it was my second best skill. I could run and I could barely swim. But when I got on the bike, the 80-year-olds were passing me like that was nothing, right? But not Brooks Curry. Not Coach Steve. See, Steve says, listen, come with us, right? Let's win this together. We all need pieces to fit in a swim team puzzle, right? And he didn't stop at just tapping the untapping gifts of Brooks Curry. He took the 12 or 13 that stuck it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to coach them all, right? You didn't just coach one, did you, Coach?
Correct. And again, like part of the getting over the hump and actually achieving the gold was convincing 12 or 13 other people, like you said, to come with him and say, listen, I need you to come with me knowing that you're not going to get to go to the Olympics. I need you to come with me knowing that when he achieves this goal, which I know he's capable of achieving, only he will get the gold medal, but all of you will know for the rest of your life that you had a part in that achievement. And that in itself should be the reason why you want to go with him. And boy, oh boy, were they all proven right in terms of just investing in that.
And you won the gold medal.
That's it.
Listen, I'm going to wrap this show up. Steve, you are phenomenal. You are my friend. I have goosebumps. I actually am emotional. We should aspire to be a coach. We should aspire to build other people. We should aspire to be mentors. We should aspire to shock the world. But to shock the world, we need to shock ourselves. We learned that today from Steve. We learned that from all the sports stuff that we look at. And I just want you to filter through some of the crap that's crap. And I want you to focus on Steve right now because he's a real deal. He's a real competitor. He's a real deliverer. He's a real high performance coach. He finds the untapped potential. So God bless you, Steve. Get to his website, right? What's the name of your website?
Yep, Career Competitor. That's the name of the podcast. It's the name of the business. And at this point, I'm almost ready to legally change my name to Career Competitor. It's getting to that point. But hey, and listen, if you're listening to me, yes, go to the website. But secondly, Steve at Career Competitor. I'm a man of human contact. Reach out to me. If it means us having a 15-minute conversation, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. This man is building 2 years into a massive career. He's best. He's helping me. He's coaching me. He doesn't even know he's doing it. He doesn't know he's going to get a phone call in a week like, hey, Steve, can you help me? All right, everybody. I just want you to know that I do love you. I do care about you. I want you to know that you are wired differently. Remember that we're going to build ourselves personally, spiritually, and profitably. Thank you, Steve. God bless you and your family and your friends and what you did for my listeners today. And I'm wishing you well. And this is not the last time we're going to talk.
God bless you, Todd. Appreciate the time, brother.
Let's get it on like Donkey Kong. Let it rip, potato chip. Rah, rah, rah.